The wind screamed through the frozen village of Rheinmar, but Sira heard nothing, not the storm, not the cries of her people, not even the raw, tearing sound that escaped her throat when she realized her child was gone. They had come with the storm. Red signal raiders, slavers and butchers in obsidian armor, moving like shadows in the whiteout, slipping past the perimeter sensors and through the snow-laced dark. Sira had fought them for years. Once a captain in the Velari vanguard, always a warrior, but not tonight. Tonight, the blood in her hands was her own, and her son was nowhere in the cradle. They had taken Kale. He had been swaddled and warm not 3 hours before, his tiny fingers curled around hers as she reconnected the solar coils. The first shot came from the far ridge. She left him for just a moment, one moment, that was all it took. When she returned, the sled was overturned. The coverings scattered, the tracks vanished into the snow. Sira stood in the empty street, eyes hollow, her knees buckling beneath the weight of dread. Around her, her people said nothing. They knew better than to offer comfort that wouldn't land. Her hands trembled, rage rose like wildfire in her throat, but it couldn't burn away the horror. Lightning cracked across the clouds, blinding white, splitting the sky open like a wound, and then, through the storm, a figure emerged. He walked, against the wind like he was born in it. Tall, hooded, armor like charcoal steel, snow melting against mat plates. A rifle was slung across his chest, frost clinging to the barrel. He moved with the precision of someone who didn't hesitate. Someone who had been through hell and brought a piece of it back with him. But it wasn't the weapon that made Sira's breath stop. It was what he carried, a bundle, small, wrapped in grey thermal cloth, a baby's muffled cry, soft as falling snow. She was running before her mind caught up with her feet. The stranger stepped into the firelight, and the crowd parted. He didn't raise his weapon. He simply stopped, snow dripping from his beard, breath rising in slow clouds. Her voice cracked the silence like a blade striking stone. "Where did you find him? Who are you?" The man's eyes flicked up, steel blue, tired, unflinching. "He was in a cage, 2 clicks north. Raiders had him in a transport cradle. Looked like they were prepping a jump." She grabbed Kale from his arms and held him against her, unable to speak. He was warm, alive. His tiny hand clutched her tunic. The relief hit so hard her knees almost gave out. "I'm Darren Holt," the man said after a pause. "Earthborn, just passing through." She blinked at him. "You're human." "Yeah," he said, glancing up at the bruised sky. The raiders weren't too happy about it either. "You stopped them?" she asked, still clutching Kyle, as if he might vanish again. He nodded. "All of them." The weight of that hung in the air like the smoke from burning circuits. Her eyes narrowed. "Why?" Darren looked at her, voice steady. "Because I've seen this before. Back on Ceres, back on Mars. Good people hurt, because no one else would do a damn thing. I couldn't save them, but I could save him." Her breath hitched. The truth in his voice cut deeper than any blade. She looked away, her voice cracking. "They'll come back for him. The raiders don't let go." He stared out into the storm, jaw set. "Then we make sure they don't leave." In the longhouse, the fire glowed low and gold. Kyle slept again, curled under layers of heated wool. Sira sat across from Darren, eyes never leaving him as he stripped the ice from his gloves and took a sip from the steaming mug in his hands. He hadn't taken off his armor. Scars peeked from beneath the cowl of his hood, some new, some old enough to fade into memory. He moved like a man who had lost too much and learned to keep moving anyway. "You were military?" she asked. Darren nodded. "Used to be 4th Company, Earth Colonial Forces, discharged after the Ilkari campaign. You're far from home." "There is no home," he said, his voice like worn stone. "Not anymore." Silence stretched between them. The only sound was the fire crackling and the soft breath of her child. Then he looked up at her. "I've seen what they do to kids. I've seen the cages. I wasn't going to leave him there. Something twisted in her chest, something warm and terrible. She wanted to ask him more, about where he'd come from, why he still fought, but there was no time. Not now. She stood. If they know he's still alive, they'll return. I know, Darren said. That's why I stayed. They worked quickly. The villagers fortified the perimeter with scrap drones and kinetic mines triggered by proximity and heat spikes. Darren directed the layout, showing them how to stagger, their defenses, how to build fallback positions. He trained the younger fighters to handle recoil, to breathe under pressure. Sirah fought beside him, shoulder to shoulder, blade always within reach. As they worked, a quiet rhythm built between them. He never needed to explain things twice. She never questioned his orders. It felt strange, this trust between strangers. But it was real, and that was rare. On the final night before dawn, they stood at the edge of the village, overlooking the frozen hills. The sky was black with storm clouds, lit only by the occasional flash of lightning. Behind them, the others waited in silence, weapons primed, nerves fraying. He looked at her. "You trust me?" "I don't have a choice," she said. He nodded. "Good, because neither do I." Her eyes didn't waver. "You didn't have to come here. You didn't have to save him." "No," he said, "but I did, because someone should." Then came the moment she hadn't expected. He reached into his coat and pulled something out, a small pendant, scorched and bent. It bore the sigil of Earth's fallen colonies. He placed it in her hand. "I failed a family once, lost a child. I couldn't save her. I carry this so I never forget." She closed her fingers around the metal. "Then you found the right child to save." Their eyes locked. Between them, something shifted. Not just alliance, something deeper, a warning flare, streaked the sky. Crimson. The first raider scout had been spotted. The wind howled as the village came alive with silent urgency. Weapons clicked into place, shields activated. The trap was set, but there were more coming, many more. Darren loaded his rifle and looked at her. "When they hit, they'll hit hard. Stay behind me." Sirah narrowed her eyes. "I fight. I lead. I bleed. I don't stay behind." A grim smile tugged at his lips. "Didn't think you would." And together, side by side, they turned toward the dark, toward the coming fire, toward war. The fire inside the cabin sputtered against the wind, howling through the timber walls, but the warmth it gave was enough to thaw numb fingers and bring breath back into the lungs. Sirah cradled her child, Ayla, tighter, her hands trembling. "You?" Child's eyelids fluttered, then opened, deep violet, the color of their kind. Alive. Across the room, Darren Holt sat with his back against the door, his rifle propped beside him and snow melting from his armor, puddling on the worn wooden floor. His face was cast in half-shadow from the firelight, angular and solemn. Not once had he looked away from her. "I don't understand," she whispered, voice raw from screaming, from hope, from despair. "You're human." "I am." His voice was deep, gravel rough, yet gentle. Darren Holt, ex-military, was scouting a perimeter when I intercepted the raiders, saw one take the child, tracked them. Sirah's arms tightened around Ayla. "You shouldn't have risked your life." Darren gave a short, humorless laugh. "Didn't plan on it, just couldn't watch them take a baby and vanish." There was silence between them, heavy but not cold. Outside, lightning flickered again through the snow, casting ghostly shadows. On the log walls, Sirah sat slowly beside the hearth, every movement cautious, graceful, practiced, the way soldiers move when they no longer want to be soldiers. "You're not from here," she said, studying him. "No, I've been living in the outland since the treaty fell apart. When I'm lucky, I'm left alone. When I'm not—" He gestured to his bruised face and blood-crusted knuckles. "You saw. You shouldn't have come here. This village is a ghost. We're waiting to die." "Then I guess I'm not leaving," Darren replied, quiet but firm. "Not until I know you're safe." Sira frowned. "Why would you care?" He didn't answer immediately. His eyes flicked toward Ayla, then to her. "Because I've lost a child before, a long time ago. I couldn't save mine. Maybe this time I could do something different." The words struck her like a quiet blow, unexpected, intimate. She didn't ask more. Instead, she set Ayla in a woven basket filled with furs and rose stiffly. The ache in her joints told her how long she had gone without rest, without hope. Her body had survived. Her heart had not. She looked back at the man by the door. His presence filled the small room, not just with mass or armor, but with something heavier, purpose. "You should eat something, if you're staying." He nodded. They passed the next hour in silence, broken only by the crackling fire and Ayla's soft breathing. When Sira placed a bowl of root stew before him, Darren took it with a grateful nod. Their hands brushed briefly. It was strange, that moment. The electricity didn't come from the storm outside, but from the sudden awareness between them, something warm beneath the frost. Later, when Ayla had fallen into deep sleep and the storm softened to a whisper, Sira stepped outside. With Darren, snow swirled in the moonlight and the world seemed silent as a held breath. She wrapped her arms around herself and he shrugged off his heavy cloak and placed it over her shoulders without a word. "You tracked a raider unit in blizzard winds across enemy land to save someone you didn't know," she said softly. "Yes. And you fight like one of ours." He met her eyes. "I fought in the early years, on the front lines of the outer conflict. Didn't matter what species the orders pointed at. I followed them." Her expression hardened. "Then you've killed our kind." "I have." No excuses, no defense. "Why help now?" He hesitated. "Because I saw you in that house. Heard your scream, and I knew exactly what that scream meant." Sira's chest rose and fell. She said nothing, but her hands trembled in the cloak. "They'll come back," he said. "Raiders like that don't lose and forget. You hurt them. I did too, and now they'll want blood." She nodded. "We don't have warriors left, only mothers and widows." "Then we train them," Darren said. "We fortify this place, make it hard to take." Sira looked at him like he was mad. Maybe he was. "This isn't your fight, Darren." He took a step closer. "It is now." There was something in his eyes, a deep, haunted loyalty, the kind forged in flame and regret. Sira didn't trust easily, especially not humans, but something about him wasn't like the others. Maybe it was the way he didn't flinch from the truth. Maybe it was the baby sleeping inside. Maybe it was just that her heart, long frozen, had begun to stir. "You'll stay?" she asked, barely audible over the wind. He reached out, brushed a wind-blown strand of hair from her cheek. "As long as you need me." She didn't answer with words. Instead, she turned toward the cabin, cloak trailing behind her, but left the door open for him. By morning, the village would begin to wake. Word would spread that one of the lost children had been found, that a human warrior had fought off a raider pack and returned from the storm, and in the center of it all, by the fire, a mother and her daughter slept peacefully for the first time in months, while a man with a rifle stood at the window, watching the snow for shadows, because peace, he knew, would not last long. And love, he suspected, might be the hardest battle of all. The days that followed were quiet only on the surface. Sira moved through her village like a ghost reawakened, but every footstep now carried intent. Her people, thin, silent, tired of mourning, watched her with something between awe and disbelief. She had returned from the storm with her child in her arms and a human soldier at her back. That alone changed things. Darren wasted no time. He started with the broken fences that had been left to rot after the last raid. He stripped the snow away, dug into the half-frozen soil, and reset posts with the silent intensity of a man who'd built defenses in worse places. He didn't ask for help. He didn't offer orders, but the villagers watched, and slowly, a few joined. Sira caught herself staring more than once. He worked like someone who didn't want to think, or maybe someone who thought too much. The tension in his shoulders never left, even when he held Isla, who had quickly grown attached to him, her tiny hands tugging at his rough beard, her soft coos chasing away the silence he carried. He seemed weighed down by something she hadn't yet named. One night, after Ayla had been put to sleep and the snow had settled like crushed glass across the rooftops, Sira walked with Darren beyond the outskirts of the village. They stopped on the ridge that overlooked the valley. From there, they could see the horizon burning violet with the distant light of a shipyard, one long abandoned by both species, a relic of the war. "Why did you really come here?" she asked, arms crossed against the cold. Darren didn't answer. Right away, the wind stirred his cloak. His breath steamed from between his lips. "I came here to die," he said finally. Sira blinked, startled. "What?" "I thought if I kept moving, kept finding war zones no one else wanted, maybe I'd get lucky and one of them would take me. But I never expected to live long enough to find something worth dying for." Her throat tightened. "And now?" "I found something worth living for instead." His eyes met hers, dark and unwavering. She didn't look away. "Ayla?" He nodded. Then softly, "You." Her chest rose and fell slowly. She should have walked away, should have reminded herself that he was human, that no good had ever come of trusting them. But his words didn't feel like a seduction. They felt like confession. They felt like truth. She stepped closer. Before she could say anything more, a sharp whistle split the air. They dropped low, instincts honed by war snapping into place. Darren had his weapon in hand within seconds, his body shielding hers. The whistle came again, then a flare arced into the sky, blood red. From the tree line beyond the valley, lights blinked into view. 1, 2, 3, 4. "Sentries," Darren muttered, "scouting pattern. They've found us." Sira's heart pounded. "How long do we have?" "Hours, maybe less." They sprinted back to the village, urgency replacing their quiet moment like a storm swallowing a meadow. The town bell, long silent, rang out as Sira sounded the alarm. People poured from cabins, confused, frightened, clutching old weapons and farming tools. Darren stood atop a table near the center square, his voice cutting through the cold. "They're coming, raiders or something worse. We don't have the luxury of fear. We have a few hours, maybe less, to turn this place into something that can hold. You've lost family, children, homes, I know that. I can't give them back." He pointed toward the tree line where the flare had burned out. "But I can promise this. They will not take another child, not while I still breathe." The silence was thick, but it was not hopeless. Murmurs rose, slow at first, then strong. The blacksmith brought out her hammer. The old farmers brought their hunting bows. Mothers kissed their children and picked up knives. Sira stood beside Darren, her voice clear and fierce. "You know me. You saw me lose my mate. You watched me bury friends. You heard my screams. But I came back with my daughter. Because this man," she laid a hand on Darren's chest, "brought her back. Tonight we fight not just to live, but to stop living in fear." That night the village became a fortress. Barricades rose at the main road. Boiling pitch was set in hidden traps. Darren walked the perimeter with sharpened spears in one hand and blueprints sketched in the snow with the other. Sira organized food supplies, helped the injured find safe spaces, and posted runners. All the while, a strange thing happened. The village began to breathe together again, as one. And then night fell fully. The first sound of the enemy came, not from above, but below. Tunnels. Sira was the first to hear the dull thump from beneath the root cellar. She grabbed a pickaxe and smashed through rotted floorboards, just in time to see a clawed hand reach up from the dirt. She didn't scream. She Swung. The blow cracked bone. Darren was already there a moment later, rifle blazing, cutting down 2 more raiders as they burst from the ground. The villagers rallied, pouring into the square. The attack was brutal and fast. Raiders with synthetic armor and plasma teeth. Modified. Hunters. Cybernetic scouts. They came in waves. But Darren had anticipated more than they had. His traps caught the first 10. His sharpshooting dropped another 7. Sierra fought beside him, twin blades flashing. At one point, she slipped. Blood beneath her boots, and a raider lunged for her. Darren tackled the creature mid-leap, driving a blade through its throat. Their eyes met again in the chaos. She nodded once. A promise. Together, they cleared the square. It wasn't clean. It wasn't easy. 5 villagers were lost, but 20 were saved. The enemy fled before dawn, and in the aftermath, when the firelight returned to the village center and the wounded were carried gently back to beds and Isla slept once more, Sierra and Darren stood together again in the snow. Still want to die? She asked softly. He smiled for the first time. Not anymore. She leaned in, slowly, carefully, and kissed him. It wasn't fierce. It wasn't desperate. It was the first true thing either of them had felt in years, but overhead, in the high clouds, something else watched. Silent. A carrier-class ship marked, with a human flag and a black sigil from a long-dead military house. The war wasn't over, and love had only begun. The winter never truly ended on Ilaran 9. The skies lightened, but the cold remained, lurking in every breath, every shadow. For Sierra, though, something had shifted, not in the weather, but within. In her chest, where grief had once frozen her. Spirit, there was warmth now, not a blaze, not yet, but an ember. Ayla laughed more. She giggled at snowflakes, chased her own breath, and slept nestled between her mother and the human who had saved them both. Darren had stayed, not for obligation, not for duty, but because this battered village, this fierce woman, this tiny miracle of a child, had become home. But peace was not eternal, and the firestorm came again. It began with the signal intercepted in the ruins of the old relay tower, faint, coded, unmistakable. Syrah deciphered it first. Her blood went cold. "It's not raiders," she told Darren, who had stopped sharpening his blade to listen. He looked up. "Then who?" She turned the tablet, so he could see the sigil on the screen. High Dominion. One of the surviving castes. They're coming for Isla. "Because of her blood?" he asked, already guessing the answer. "She's royal, technically. My late mate's line was linked to the ancient councils. They probably believed she died in the invasion, but someone found out she's alive, and they're coming to claim her." His jaw clenched. "They'll try to take her away?" Syrah nodded. "They'll call it a reclamation, a unification of bloodlines, but she'll be raised among the same caste that once rejected me, rejected him, and discarded both of us. And now they want the child of a warrior they left to die." Darren stood. "They'll have to kill me first." She met his eyes. "And me." The ship arrived the next dawn, not cloaked, not stealthy. It descended in gold and white, sleek and arrogant, radiating power. It hovered over the valley like a god's eye, casting long shadows across the snow. A platform extended from its belly, and down it walked a woman in gleaming chrome armor, draped in layers of woven star silk and ceremonial jewels. Her eyes were purple fire, her voice was ice. "I am High Diplomat Virelia of the Ascendant Caste. You harbor one of royal blood. Step aside, and the child will be returned to her proper station." Syrah stepped forward. Ayla clutched tight in a sling across her chest. Her voice was steel wrapped in velvet. "She is already in her proper station." Virelia arched one delicate brow. "Among dirt and beasts, raised by a half-caste widow and a primitive human." The villagers bristled. Darren took one step closer. "Careful," he said, but the diplomat merely smiled. "You have no claim. The blood right is hers, not yours. Give her up, or your little hamlet will be turned to ash. Do not confuse sentiment for strength. We choose strength, Darin said. Virelia sighed, flicking her hand. From the sky, soldiers descended, 20 armored figures in mirrored helms, weapons primed. They landed in formation, a line of flawless death. Darin moved first. He charged into them like a spear of fury, knocking down the first 3 with calculated blows. His blade flashed silver, soaked red within seconds. Syrah was beside him, dual, blades slicing the air with a grace born of pain and practice. The villagers surged in behind them, old men, young women, even children bearing slings and smoke bombs. The Dominion soldiers were trained, but they hadn't expected resistance. Like this, for every villager that fell, 3 of the enemy did. Darin fought like a man who had nothing left to lose and everything to protect, and still they kept coming until a scream tore through the sky, not human, not alien, but mechanical. From the north, a second ship appeared. It bore the sigil of the Forgotten Legion, Darin's old unit, a ghost force disbanded, betrayed by the command that birthed them. But Darin had left a signal weeks ago, hidden in the mountains, broadcast in desperate hope. Now they answered. The Legion's strike force fell from the sky like judgment. They weren't polished. They weren't ceremonial. They were brutal. Mechs. With plasma hammers, assault troops in scorched black, they tore through Dominion ranks in a blur of heat and thunder. Within minutes, the tide had turned. Virelia backed away, her guards failing one by one. Darin stepped forward, bloodied and limping, blade lowered. "You can leave in peace," he growled, "or in pieces." Virelia looked around. Her army broken, her ship damaged, and at the center of it all, Syrah, her armor cracked, her hair wild, her daughter clinging to her back, and the human beside her, not a beast, not beneath her. Something she had never truly understood, a protector, a mate, a father. Virelia turned slowly, seething, and climbed back to her ship. "You've made enemies beyond imagining," she hissed. "Enjoy your little romance while it lasts." And then she was gone. The ship lifted, retreating into the sky, trailing smoke and silence. Syrah dropped her weapons. Darin caught her before she fell. They held each other in the stillness as snow began to fall again. Later, as the fires died down and the Legion began setting up defenses around the valley, Syrah sat beside Darin beneath the stars, Ayla asleep. "Between them, she has your stubbornness," he said. "She has your courage. She has your eyes," they smiled. "Will they come back?" Syrah asked. Maybe worse will come," she nodded. "Then we'll be ready." He took her hand, fingers lacing tight. "We build a future," he said. "Together." The stars above said nothing, but for once they did not feel cold, just distant and waiting. Humanity was never meant to be just survivors. We love, we protect, we build where others only conquer. If this story moved you, share it. Let the world remember. Sometimes the heart is stronger than the blade, and love can outlive war.